Greetings. We're so happy to have you with us today. We are on our live stream and we're having a very good time. And today I wanted to talk to you about the prosperity power of forgiveness. That's right, the prosperity power of forgiveness. How you can use forgiveness to prosper you. Okay, so here we go. Now, there is an erroneous belief in the world that the divine creator of all the universe, which goes by whatever name, whoever calls it, is testing us, testing each of us to see what we're made of, to see if we're worthy. We're always being put through tests and lessons, and most of them are really difficult and hard. And that if we pass those tests and those lessons with flying colors, then maybe God will reward us at some point. Maybe in this life, maybe in another life. But I'm sure you've seen some iteration of that somewhere along the line, where God's testing you or trying you or just making sure that you're worthwhile, right? So that's what we would call an ego projection. That is what the ego mind is making of the idea of a higher power. Remember what God is, according to the craft, at least according to my understanding of the craft. God is not a being. God is the source of all. So there's only one. Now, if we're looking on the tree of life, that is called Kether. That is the Godhead, right? And then the God and the goddess are the next two emanations. So there's a god and a goddess, but they are gender identities. They are symbolized by gender, but the Godhead is pre-gender. There's no gender there, and there's no separation there. God is everywhere. There's no place where God stops and anything else starts. There's God is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. There's nothing to all powerful. There's nothing to thwart it, right? That's what God is, right? So, but God is also perfect love. And God creates you out of perfect love. God's will is perfect love. And when God creates you, it didn't happen in time, it happens now. God creates you eternally. When God creates you, it's an act of love. It's out of love. It's only love. There is nothing but love. There's no opposite to love. Some people will say, well, yeah, no, the opposite of love is fear, or the opposite of love is hatred. No, those aren't the opposite of love. It's an attempt to oppose love. It's an attempt to oppose love, but there's no principle of fear. There's no principle of hatred. Those are ways to try to thwart the principle. But without the principle itself, those things are meaningless, right? Without the principle of love, hatred is meaningless. Without the principle of light, darkness is meaningless. So the principle is the truth. The things that are attempting to oppose it don't have a principle. So therefore, they aren't actually real from the point of view of the Creator. They don't really exist, but we experience them as real in our world. But they are ultimately not real, and that's why it's no problem for our higher power, whatever you want to call it, to handle these issues, because the higher power doesn't see that those issues exist to begin with. So it's sort of a dichotomy that God knows we have problems, but God doesn't understand our problems. So God doesn't see our problems because God didn't create our problems. Okay? So when we are coming from this point of view of God's testing us, then it seems like that gives us a reason why we don't have what we want, we can't get what we want, or we have what we don't want. And so when we're dealing with things like prosperity, it's very easy for us to take that concept of God's testing us into that realm. Well, maybe if I'm better as a person, I'll get more prosperity. Maybe if I'm, if I work harder, I'll get my prosperity. Maybe whatever I can do to prove to the gods of prosperity that I'm worthy. What can I do? Maybe it's the spell that I need. Maybe I don't have the right kind of incense. Maybe I need to wash my doors down with this special wash, and that'll help. So, but there's all of these ideas that God is just testing us. It's almost like arbitrary. Sometimes like, what can I do? What can I do to get God's favor? I mean, it's just like there's got to be something that I can do to make God help me be happy, help me be prosperous, right? Well, from the point of view of spirit, none of that makes any sense, because God already gave it to you. When God extended love as you, God meant all of it. God gave all of it to you. When God created you, or when God creates you, when God extends God's self as you, there's nothing held back. God can't hold back. God doesn't hold back. That's ungodly. So in order to create, God had to give of itself fully as you. And that meant everything is there. There's nothing missing. So that includes all your prosperity. That is prosperity. And the visible, the physical manifestations in this world of all of that prosperity are a natural byproduct of the reflection of who you are as a prosperous individual. That's your birthright. That's who you came here to be. Now, at some point, you decided that that wasn't good enough. That wasn't enough. You being perfect wasn't enough. You needed this is what we call arrogance. You needed somehow to separate yourself from God. And how do you separate yourself from all that is? You become a little bit of nothing then. That's the only way you can do it, is to think that you're nothing. How can you separate yourself from all? Well, the only thing that you could do, possibly, that makes any kind of sense logically, is to consider yourself as being nothing, as being less than, as being missing something, as being as having a gap in you. There's something that's missing. But that's your perception. That is your desire to be arrogant. That is your desire to separate yourself from all good. That's what that is. Yeah? So when we are experiencing things within this three-dimensional world that are lacking prosperity or whatever we need, but today we're talking about prosperity, the last thing we want to look at is, I'm trying to thwart my perfection by experiencing poverty. We don't look at it that way, because according to the world, all these things happened to us that created. We were born on the wrong side of the tracks, or somebody cheated us out of our money, or I didn't get enough education, or I'm too old, or I'm the wrong gender, or I'm the wrong whatever. There's reasons why I don't have money. My money was taken from me. I'm disabled. I whatever. There's income equality in the nation. There's a lot of reasons that the world will give you why you don't have what you want. But the last thing anybody will ever look at is the reason why you don't have what you want is because you refused it. Because you said, no, thank you. I want to do things my way. This isn't good enough, God. I want to be the God of my own universe. And that's what we do. And so anytime we're experiencing something that is less than perfect, we can, if we want to, say, I wonder if, you don't have to assume that I'm right, but you can say, I wonder if on some level I'm refusing my good. I wonder if on some level I have a part in this poverty that I'm experiencing. Well, the ego mind is again, it's not an entity. It's just a habit pattern. It's a habit of thinking thoughts of separation, and it brings them into to the nth degree. So the ego mind, in order to keep you feeling separate, needs to keep you feeling alone, needs to keep you feeling afraid. It needs to keep you feeling somewhat vulnerable. The ego wants to give you lots of little problems that don't seem solvable, sometimes big problems that don't seem solvable, because that way you stay busy trying to just exist within your world of problems so that you never question where those problems come from. So one of the big ways that the ego will keep you busy is by keeping you resentful, keeping grievances alive. And sometimes the ego is so clever, because remember, it's our own creativity that we're using against ourselves. We can be so clever at that by not even noticing that what we're experiencing is a resentment. Sometimes it's obvious that we're resenting somebody, but sometimes it's not so obvious that we're resenting somebody. Sometimes just resenting people is just our normal way of living. And so it's sort of like when you wear, you wear a particular cologne after several minutes, you don't smell it anymore because you are used to it. You become used to that perfume on you, or that cologne on you. And everybody else can smell it, but you can't. So the same thing goes with our resentment. Sometimes we've been doing them for so long, it just seems like normal. We think we're pretty forgiving people. We think we're pretty cool. We don't know that we're resenting people. But then if we take some time away from our arrogance and just thinking about, well, okay, if what Ariel said is true, if that is, I'm not saying it is, but let's just, for the sake of argument, say what he said was true, that I have a hand in all of this, and that it could have something to do with my resentments, which I don't really think I have. But let's just give him the benefit of the doubt for a second, and let's think about this. Have I been abused in the past? Have I been mistreated? Have I been treated unfairly in the past? Are there certain people that just bug me for no reason at all? They just bug me. I can't stand that guy. I don't know what it is about him. I just can't stand him. We don't want to notice that we think those things. Some people don't mind. Some people that aren't so-called spiritual people, some of those people are almost proud of their resentments, But it seems like when you get into this spiritual stuff, that it's not cool to have resentments. You're supposed to be forgiving. So then we just pretend like we don't have them. That's not the same as forgiveness. That's actually worse, because then everything is twice removed and we don't know what's going on, because we can't even discern that we're carrying around resentments and grievances against people. And the thing is that the ego doesn't mind that you don't know who you're resenting, as long as you're resenting. And the ego doesn't mind if you start to want to forgive somebody either, because it'll just find somebody else for you to resent. And even if you get to the point where you forgive everybody, the ego will just find a reason for you to hate yourself. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to the ego who you're resenting, as long as you're resenting somebody, as long as you're making somebody wrong. Because if you're making somebody wrong, you're not going to look to the solution of your problems, because you're so busy resenting. You're not going to look at the solution of the problems, which is forgiveness. If you can forgive those resentments, then you are completely taken out of that pattern. You have taken your power to change back. Until you've forgiven those resentments, your power is being utilized. It's like all of your power is being directed elsewhere. It's all being used for another purpose. So your channels are so blocked that you can't do anything but wonder why everything is bad in your life, right? So when we start looking at forgiveness as being a tool for prosperity, we mean it. We really do mean it. That if you can forgive for real, these resentments that you have, what you're doing is you are opening yourself up to receiving the experience of that which is already yours. Do you see the difference between that and, well, I got to go get something to fill a gap? There's something missing in me. If you start off with there's something missing in me and I got to go get some prosperity, you're already starting with the wrong premise. You'll never get there. I mean, you might get some cash here and there. You might even build something wonderful and big, but there won't be any lasting security with it, because you're still not clear as to what the source of your prosperity is. Because if you understood what your source of your prosperity was, you wouldn't be going outside of yourself to find it. You wouldn't try to have to rustle it up for yourself. You wouldn't have to do all this stuff to make it happen. But the first step has got to be forgiveness, because without forgiveness, then you've lost your connection to your source. Well, you haven't really lost it, but you've lost your awareness to your connection to your source, is a better way is a more truthful way of saying that. So if we can't start with forgiveness, then we're wasting our time. But if you start with forgiveness, you're saving yourself thousands of years. Amazing. So let's take a moment and just be willing to do this now. Because a lot of times with these lectures, people go, yeah, oh, I know, that's so right. God, he's so smart. That is the wisest thing I've ever heard. And then they go back to whatever. That's not the point of these. It's not for you to think I'm so wonderful. The point of these is for you to have an opportunity to use whatever the tool that I'm offering, to try it out and make it work for yourself. So let's do that together right now. So if you're in a place where it's possible for you to do so without being unsafe, go ahead and close your eyes and relax your body. Take a few deep breaths and just find some way to just let go. Just let go of the tension that is in your body. The more you can let go of the tension in your body, the more you know that your connection to spirit is active. The more that you are increasing your tension, then your awareness of your ego is what's active. So let's keep relaxing the body, and we're going to call within ourselves an experience of our higher power. Now, I don't know who you are necessarily or what you consider to be your higher power, but you do. That might be the goddess. It might be the god and goddess. It might be the Lord. It might be God. It might be Bridget. It might be the Holy Spirit. It might be the Divine Mother. It might be the Virgin Mary. Maybe it's Ra. Maybe it's Apollo. Whoever your higher power manifests himself, reveals themselves to you, call it an experience of that. No matter what it is. It's infinite intelligence, infinite power. Nothing to thwart it. There's one. There's only one. It can come as whatever disguise it wants, but there's only one power. There's only one source. There's only one substance. It's before gender. So it can be a mother. It can be a father. It can be a neither. So call in that experience of this infinite intelligence. Now let's experience the fact that we know that we have some unforgiveness within us. We have some resentments within us. We have some grievances within us that we have either not been willing to look at or not been willing to let go. And we recognize right this moment that forgiveness is inherently selfish and that that's a good thing. And we're not forgiving any abusers of our past in order for them to go abuse again. We're not giving them license to be abusive by forgiving. What we're doing is we're freeing ourselves from the pattern of abuse so it won't continue again. Now, perhaps there's been times when we've been the abuser. And we recognize that we didn't know any better in that moment how to get our needs met. If we did, we would have done better. But we know better now. And we forgive ourselves for any kind of abuse that we've heaped on other people, no matter in what form it came. We forgive ourselves, and we are very sorry for that. And if we need to, we go make amends. But it doesn't matter. Right now, we are forgiven. We feel forgiven. We forgive ourselves. And if we remember, the Lord's Prayer gives us the formula to how to forgive ourselves. Forgive our debtors as we have forgive us our debts as we have forgiven our debtors. So the more we forgive others, the more we forgive ourselves. And that's why we're doing it. We're not doing it for them. We're doing it for ourselves. And then that's okay. It's okay to have self-interest. So what happens if we don't know in this moment how to forgive? Then we call upon this higher power to do it for us. All we need to do is be willing to let go of this, to not want to keep it, and to not want to go back to it again. So we're asking in this moment to this power, infinite intelligence, infinite spirit, infinite love, please take this from me. I do not want to keep it, and I will not go back to it again. Today is the last day. Today is my day of general amnesty. All are forgiven. Blessed be. Okay, so when you've forgiven someone, it's done. You don't have to repeat it. Don't keep forgiving them. Oh yeah, I'm still forgiving them. No, then you never did forgive them. Once you forgave them, you gave it. You don't take it back. It's done. You forgave it. So it's done. They're gone. You're free. They're free. Everybody's free. And now you are in a position of receptivity where you can actually experience the prosperity that is your birthright, because you are no longer thwarting it. You are no longer saying, no, God, no, God, no, God, I don't want your gifts. I don't want this stuff. I want my resentments. That's all that matters to me. That's all that's important to me. Give me my resentments. But we don't tell the truth when we say things like that. No, because that would be too obvious. Then we'd say, well, I don't want to think that way. I don't want to think that way. Let's change that. No, we don't do that. We really feel that way. And then we say, I wonder why nothing's working for me. That is so weird. It's so weird how I don't have the prosperity. I keep doing these spells. It's so weird. Other people seem to have it. Why don't I have it? Well, now you know. Now you know, because you wanted one thing over the other, right? You can't have it both ways. Not as a spiritual gift, not as a spiritual person, not as a spiritually oriented person. You've decided you're going to be on this path, right? And God wants you to be here on this path, and God wants you to have everything that you want. But God's not capable of breaking God's own laws, right? Now, it's true that there are people in the world that amass great amounts of financial wealth that have huge resentments. But those people are not wealthy, they're not prosperous, because they only have one side of the tripod. Remember, prosperity is peace within your body and mind, health within your body and mind, and financial wealth. All three have to be in equal proportion in order for us to really call it prosperity. So yeah, if you focus only on money and that's all that matters, you can turn your back on all this stuff. You don't have to be you don't have to forgive. You don't have to be spiritually oriented. If all you want is money and you want to be lopsided and you just want money, you can go get it. You can even use metaphysics to get it. You can visualize it. You can visualize the stuff. You can get all the money you want. Right? And you don't have to be a spiritual person. You just go be wealthy. But you're going to be miserable because there's no way that you can have only money and be prosperous, because you won't be able to have the peace of mind. You won't be able to have the bodily health or the mental health in order to maintain it, because it has no spiritual basis. You've just used a bunch of mental magic, whether you call it that or not, in order to get some things to work for you in this world. But there's no happiness there. There's no joy there. Right? So we're not saying this is the only way to make physical wealth at all. But if you want prosperity, which is that tripod, if you want prosperity, this is the only way. You got to give up those resentments. But don't believe that just giving up those resentments is only going to give you spiritual wealth, because if you listen to some spiritual teachers and some religious teachings from the ages, you can have one or the other. You can either have the prosperity that your Father has for you in heaven, or you can have money. But there is no way you can have both. Well, that's a bunch of bunk. That's ridiculous. The physical universe is supposed to be an extension of a reflection of divinity. That's what it's supposed to be here for. It's supposed to reflect your divinity so that you can have an experience of the divine in physical form. You can have heaven on earth. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That is what's supposed to happen. And if that's not what's happening, something's wrong. Okay? So don't believe that your spiritual work and that your forgiveness is only going to give you peace of mind, but it's not going to help you with the finances, because that's not true. I know people who can point to forgiveness as being their primary reason for having their financial wealth. Nothing else was working for them until they forgave, and then the finances flowed. But not at the expense of their peace of mind. Not at the expense of their bodily health, all together in harmony. Now, I'm not telling you that if you forgive everybody that you won't ever have problems again, you won't ever get sick, that you won't ever have financial problems, or that you'll always have peace of mind. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that if you forgive, and that forgiveness is top of mind for you, that you have an opening to have that be your reality, that you have health, wealth, and happiness, that you have peace of mind, health of body, and financial wealth in equal proportions, that opening does happen, and that is a possibility for you, and that you can achieve those things. That whether you will all the time, probably not. Nobody gets it right all the time. But will you get to a new level where you're not having the same kind of weird problem cycles over and over and over again? Will you get to a new level in your finances where you're not constantly robbing Peter to pay Paul and being broke all the time? Possibly yes. Especially since the bulk of those kinds of cycles are not really about money for many of you. Those are manifestations of your resentments. And some of those resentments are profound. So let's try it. Let's give ourselves a good 30 days where we're really committed to letting go the resentments. The little ones, the big ones, all of them. We're letting ourselves off the hook. We're letting other people off the hook. We notice it when we have resentments. We notice it when we're irritated with people. We're honest with it. We don't try to solve it by ourselves. We call upon our inner guide and say, help me, please. I really hate this person right now and I don't know what to do about it, but I know I don't want to keep it. Please help me. That's all it takes. You don't have to be perfect at this. You just have to be willing. You have to be willing. That's all. Notice the difference in your finances from just 30 days of looking at things this way. 30 days of looking at things from the point of view of forgiveness rather than the point of view of resentment. See what happens just financially in your life. Make notes of it. Be scientific about it. Don't take my word for it. Right? All right. Well, this has been awesome working with you guys today. I love you so much, and I can't wait for the next time that we get to spend together. I hope this was of help to you. And until the next time, blessed be.